Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Obstacle Racing Media channel. And this morning, I've got a chat with Giles. Big changes lately in terms of the number of events for next year. He and I get into logistics and attendance and some stuff that isn't so sexy always, but explains why some events are going away next year and what that means for the future. I think we had a great chat. I'm going to see a bunch of you at World's Toughest Mudder this weekend. Please come up to me, say hello. And oftentimes people say, you were busy talking to people. I'm always talking to people. I'm always fucking yakking. That's what I do. So just come on up. Don't be afraid to interrupt. You just say, hey, Matt, and we can chat. So let's get to Giles and I. Here we go. But let's talk about Beaver Castle. Just kidding. That's next year. Let's talk about the upcoming changes for Tough Mudder, which some saw as bad news, and we're here to get the record straight. Giles, why do we have less events next year, and why is that better for TM long term?
I think about it a little bit like the tree, right? The tree analogy.
Hang on a second. Are you gonna say? I thought, is this like the giving tree, or which tree is this?
I wish. It's the magic money tree.
Oh, okay.
We just want more branches. No, just the standard pruning piece, right?
Right.
We've got to a point where the machine is not sustaining the size that we want, and that ends up being bad for everything. And so what we are doing is we are focusing on ultimately the strongest events, and we want to get a portfolio of really successful events back and then grow from that place, as opposed to trying to sustain everything from what we know is a really limited position at the moment.
Well, I guess the first thing that people don't think about when people see event canceled, this must mean bad, especially if it's near me and poor me, and this is bad. But my guess is, and part of the reason we're talking, I'm guessing is, events don't get canceled because they're doing great, because they're overflowing with people. Correct? So
correct.
So we reduce. First of all, I said to Kyle, when COVID happened and we were talking about which events were coming back, I said, I feel like you guys have had too many events for years. Like, why do you need 60 Spartan races in the US? Like, clearly you could probably be profitable with less, right? And then they did finally figure out, like, oh, let's do a shitload of trifectas, and then we can make a lot of money at certain weekends, and that's really why. So that's good. But what Kyle said at the time was, well, with the two companies, it's not that we'll have less events per se, but if, say, Spartan has a race in Seattle in March, we don't need a Tough Mudder in March. We could probably move that Tough Mudder later in the year if we're going to be in the same area, which I thought made sense. But we've still had 20 events a year for the last few years. Even trying to go back to events that weren't successful, like I think Toronto for the first time in years, or Whistler. So I guess just tell me how you guys look at, like, this is how we look at these venues. Like, this is the kind of money they need to make, or this is the break-off point, or without getting obviously too into the actual profit and loss, just kind of explain it to me.
It's funny you mentioned venues, right? The first thing is you just have to put these at good venues. You know, we've all done events in like shitty dust bowls and gone, what are we doing here? This isn't fun. This isn't necessarily the experience we want. So first off, we've got to find the right set of venues, and those venues have to be good themselves, and they have to be within striking distance of a community that we can like engage with. Ideally, we keep them same date, same location year after year. That's how you really grow sustainable events. If we're bouncing around, it just causes chaos. You're starting from scratch. And then something else that we don't think about all that often, but it's been a big part of where we've settled on these 12 events, is our trailer lanes. So in the US, we have currently had 2 Tough Mudder kits moving around, and we've had different teams bouncing between the kits. And the focus for next year is to move to effectively 1 trailer lane. So we have 1 team, a dedicated team. They're going to move.
A trailer lane is the route that these trucks drive on? Is that what a trailer lane is?
It's a set of trucks. It's a set of trucks that have a set of kit on them that then move between this series of events. And so we're going to have one set basically. And what that means is we can have a dedicated team that can move with the trucks, which is great. And you're like, hey, well, why don't you just have 2 sets or 3 sets or 4 sets? And I'll come on to that in a second. But the intent is to then take that second set that we no longer need and strip it for parts and take all the good stuff and pile it into the remaining set, because we have not been able to invest in the Tough Mudder obstacles and Tough Mudder kit in the way we would have liked over the last couple of years. And that shows, right? And for me, there are always a couple of really critical elements of the experience. Obviously, the venue and the obstacles themselves. There was a grandeur to it, but also the crowd, the volumes of people. There was just a scale to it that added to that atmosphere and energy. And if you're rattling around a venue with 600 people spread out every Sunday morning, it just does not feel the same. And so we need to get back to initially 12 really quality large events with better builds, and we do that by deploying effectively merging the 2 kits as a starting point.
Well, I think you said it kind of quickly, and we talked a little bit before we hit record, just kind of ballparking what we were talking about, and something that, again, like, I need to hear, because I don't think about it. If I show up Saturday, right, and it's great and I have a lot of fun, and then it's like, oh, a friend of mine is coming Sunday and he or I bomb around the course and he's never done one before and he has a great time, right? And I get to see all my friends, right? I get to see Sean another day. I get to see Clinton another day. I get to see all my, all the Mudder people that trout Jalisa. I see everybody, right? But if we have to think about it, what we forget, that's our little universe. A brand new person, right, who comes to the event and it's kind of empty and they're kind of by themselves in the woods. And of course, they're going to have probably a good experience, but it's very different than when I look at some older pictures and I see start lines and I see Everest and all the things that we love and just like these crowds of people, like, that's a different experience. And again, we have to think past our little, I love this, so I want to do it every day and I want it to be the way that I like it and close to my house. I'm really fortunate. It has been at that gorgeous Bucharest Farms, if I'm saying it right, for a decade now. Almost the same weekend every year, right? And I love it. We've had Toughest there. We've had World's Toughest. We're getting another Toughest, yes, next year. But you're talking about, like, I went to Miami in 2019, and the mud obstacles were literally like a parking lot with a puddle on them, right? Like, that sucks. And if anybody that was their first Tough Mudder, they would never come back.
I like it. Yeah, exactly. You got to have the scale. You got to have the location. And that's also why we've pruned some of the Sundays. From a pure economics perspective, you go, oh, it costs out of it. There's so much fixed cost putting these events on. You go, oh, well, as long as you have 300 or 400 people, right, it's worth putting the day on. And you're like, well, you might break even from an economics perspective, but it is not a great Tough Mudder experience, particularly for the first time customer. Obviously, if you travel there yourself and you're just going for another run with your friend, that's very, very different. But it does not provide that wow moment that really just stops someone in their tracks and goes, this was unbelievable. I want to make sure that I tell everybody about this and bring them to have this experience that I've had. And so we're not looking to just like strip cash out of this. So if you also think about this from a marketing perspective, I'm using round numbers for ease of sake, right? But if you're going to say, it's $1 million we spend on marketing and it's costing you $50 a head to acquire a customer, you can acquire those customers over 20 events, or you can acquire them over 12 events. You can spend the same amount of money and you get the same number of customers, but over 12 events, the experience on site is much busier and feels better for everybody. The economics from our perspective work much better because you don't have 20 sets of fixed costs that you need to cover. You just got the 12 sets. What that means is you start to actually generate a profitable business again that can invest, as opposed to now any profit we make on one side, oh, my hand's off screen, but any profit you make on one side is going to loss made somewhere else and all just nets out to a nothing, right? And you end up not able to move forward, to progress, to reinvest. And
so can you is this rumor or fact? Spartan, many events are profitable. Tough Mudder, many events are not profitable in the US.
Well, I mean, yes. Not all events are profitable.
But that's just kind of the general that I've heard. And obviously, a 10,000 people weekend in Tahoe is more than a 6,000 people weekend in Atlanta. But overall, I'd heard that Mudder's kind of been struggling the last several years, but we were kind of hoping the numbers would come back or something else. But Spartan is basically holding them up with the tent pole, as you're saying.
Yes, I mean, massive generalization, but yes, that's fair. Generally, Spartan is more successful than Tough Mudder at the moment from an economics perspective, and there's a lot to that, right? It is a slightly different product. The retention rate, just because of the nature of racing, is slightly different as well. So you're not having to reacquire new customers over and over. So there's a big component to the marketing machine that drives that. But from the Tough Mudder side, even within North America, there are events that are, really healthy, and there are events that are unhealthy. And what we want to be able to do is take, those healthy events and have them feed other healthy events, as opposed to just offset by unhealthy, which is what's been happening over the last couple of years.
And the other thing about Sundays that I heard, again, this is like all kind of rumor mill, is I guess laws changed about how you hire people in America that made things shift for Sundays. Yes.
Yes, and I mean, American employment law is not something anybody wants to really spend too much time talking about. But
I know it's not sexy, but this actually, I feel like, gets to the bottom of things that people don't really understand.
Yeah, so a lot of our workforce has moved to hourly, due to changes in how the FLSA operates, and that means that what was once a sunk cost is not. And so we need to be really thoughtful about how we deploy our resources in the most effective way now, whereas previously, just the way that equation balance was slightly different. I think the way we have it now is better for the team. It's better for the business. It allows us to. We should always be focusing on doing the stuff that is good for the customer and good for the business, and not just, struggling on stuff that is never going to be successful. Back to that point about everybody who has done a lot of Tough Mudders or Spartans has found themselves on a Sunday afternoon somewhere going, what's going on here? This is just odd. Right? What is Spartan doing?
Right. Well, I think so. I think this stuff is really good, and you spend a lot of time behind your desk and on in what do you call it, in Slack. I can hear the little things going on, so I have to break down what you said for my American audience a little bit slower. So, if you have employees that are paid for the weekend, right? It's like they're paid for the weekend, may as well fire up Sunday, even if it breaks even. Because the laws have changed and how you hire staff, the build crew, the reg team, whoever, they're paid for the days they actually work, not just the whole weekend. And they're not being paid less, by the way, right? Like you haven't cut their money, from what I understand. You can then send them home. So now you've saved $50,000 on hotels for the next night or whatever it is. Like that's my general understanding of, again, do we wish it was that way? No, we wish we had Sundays that were full like they were in 2012, but they're not. So why do things that lose money? Because us diehards, people in the groups, just want to race more.
Yes, and I think it's tempting to go that this is just a straight economics play. We shouldn't do stuff that is losing money, because we'd much rather be making money and have the money we make reinvest in the product. That's how we end up with great events that are successful long term. So nobody should want us to be putting unprofitable events on. But it's not just about the economics. The experience also needs to drive repeat. It needs to drive interest. It needs to drive ROI. It needs to resonate with a brand, which is why we have to be reinventing or reinvesting in the obstacle sets themselves, and we have to be doubling down on the scale and the atmosphere and the overall on-site experience. And instead of, taking what's ultimately a finite amount of resources and spreading it really lean, we're going to take the same amount of resources and spread them on the events that are going to be super successful. And we expect that to be successful, better events, which will throw off the kind of economics you need to reinvest to grow from a position of strength.
So let's go over I want to go over some of these though, because, whoa. So what is, where did it go?
I can't help. I don't know what you're looking for.
I had a list up of the events. Can you talk about Canada though? I feel like we're always trying to bring Canada back and then it doesn't happen, or it does. I said Toronto, I said Whistler. I know they're very different cities. Can you explain our Canadian market for my Canadian fans out there?
Look, it's a oh, I'm blurry here. It's because you've been drinking in the morning.
Clearly.
Your excitement for the election, though, Matt. Look, oh man, I'm sorry. Blurry me is really winding me up. Let's see if this fixes it. It's a similar principle. When it comes to the trailer lane, it's particularly difficult to move these kits in and out of Canada, and that's why we haven't been moving full kits in and out, and the on-site experience has felt slightly different at Canadian events than it has in US events. And again, by focusing, we drive volume, we're able to reinvest in the kit. We're not going to expand in Canada, I think, until we have a local kit out there. There's only so many times I can deal with everything's stuck at the border and they're not sure they're going to let it through. Stress.
Yeah, you're really fuzzy there, buddy. Can you move closer to the camera or clean off your lens, maybe? There we go.
I don't know. Maybe not.
No
one's actually here to see me. Let's be honest.
Can we see your Lego collection?
Not easily.
Well, I'm saying if you remove the barricades, we could see your amazing Lego collection. You know, there's a lot of big Lego fans out there, Giles.
We have definitely gone rogue here.
We have. That's what, dude. It's me. Okay. We all know I'm not the show that goes straight. You know. I just wanted to go to the Tough Mudder website. Spooky spin to win here. You're gonna have to get rid of that. It's no longer spooky time. We're in November, buddy. It's time to get turkeys.
Hey, the team put effort into that wheel. They want to keep that going for as long as they can. But
oh, there they are. I can see them now. Oh, can you see that?
I think, yeah, if you only had one Tough Mudder event near you and it's gone, right? There's no describing that as a positive for that individual, right? That's rubbish. And we would like to be back. There are a number of markets long term that we would like to return to, but we can't grow without the fuel needed, right? And
right.
We have to do that from a position of strength, from a position of great events, from a position where we're generating the kind of profitability at an event level necessary to reinvest back in the events. And that's what we're going to prioritize now, which I think ends up in a much better position for everybody long term.
Well, if you're a Tough Mudder fan, these are legendary venues. I've been to many of these. Glen Helen Raceway, the beautiful Bucharest Farms, aka Chattahoochee Hills, aka where they shot a bunch of Marvel movies. Plantation Field, Koenig Materials in Michigan, Wild Wings of Onika. I love that one because it makes me think that we're going to have buffalo wings there. That was the home of TMX one year. Of course.
That is a throwback. TMX.
Oh, dude. We love TMX, the original hybrid event. We love TMX. Big Bear's a new one, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about Big Bear as a Mudder event.
Let's not talk about Big Bear just yet because there's a whole bunch of additional news coming with that one, but that is going to be super exciting.
So where do we lose? We lost what? Pittsburgh?
Look, there were a couple that we hadn't launched that are also gone, but like events that we'd launched that we ended up pulling off: Missouri, Pittsburgh, and Poconos.
Right. You actually bought a site in Missouri and then you got rid of it. Do you know about that?
No.
Giles. There was a place, it was like a vineyard and they had their own races and then you bought it from them. From my understanding, you bought it from them. Maybe Kyle did that when no one was looking. And now that's gone completely.
Oh, you mean we bought the... Yes, sorry, I do remember that. They had a big slide, didn't they?
Yes.
Yes, you remember. You mean the race? You don't mean that we bought a big plot of land in Missouri that we own that isn't sitting on the balance sheet somewhere?
Yes. What happened to that one?
Same thing, right? It's not that these are not good events or could not be great events in the future, but that piece about a single kit and what that allows us to do with our obstacle sets and our investment short term is a really large driving factor of the decision here. Looks like you're studying for an exam. You're staring intently at the screen.
I am studying for an exam. It's called Know Everything There Is to Know About Obstacle Racing. And between me and Jack Bauer, we have it all covered.
Indeed, indeed.
So this is Missouri. This is what happens when you're on my show. This is Missouri. Shrek and Donkey take on Tough Mudder. Get out of my swamp. Tough Mudder, Missouri, 2023. I was hoping to see the land. We can't see the land. It's just this GoPro. Oh, there it is. Is that it? The racetrack? Is that right? Can you see this?
Well, I saw you scrolling forward, and I saw the green water. I was sharing. We've had some clips that have gone viral, Arctic animals and stuff, as they do. And we had one where there were 60,000 comments on a clip about why the water was green.
Wow.
And I was like, die. But there's no science to social media. That is for sure.
Yeah. If something does well, there's like, you think you can maybe repeat it, but not necessarily. But speaking of social media, this race that we were at together in Croatia.
Yes.
They have, you run right through the town and it's awesome. And I was going to this, you're fuzzy again. And I was going to this amazing coffee place throughout the weekend. And I noticed they were right on the course. And I said, I'm going to come here during the race. I would love a coffee and then I'll pay you when I get back. And the guy said, sure. And I showed up during the race and I ran right in and I got my coffee. My buddy was there. Das, he paid for the coffee for me. I left. I was going to show this video. It's awesome. And then Joe posted one, but it was the fake version. So when you see my version, and it's fake because there's multiple camera angles, and Joe's like, oh, look, here comes a racer. So when you see my version, you will see
the racer, random racer. Yes.
Yeah. So when you see my version, know that I did it for real. I just couldn't get it up fast enough because my spear throw video was amazing. I don't know if you saw that, but I was so excited. I shared that one first. But I did, in fact, enjoy coffee mid-race. And that's one of the many reasons Havar was amazing. But I feel we got way off track. I'm talking about what events we lost. And you said them really quickly. It was Missouri and what else?
Pittsburgh and Poconos. But I genuinely think that's the wrong way to come at this, right? I shared this with the community on a couple of occasions. In a normal business world, Tough Mudder just doesn't exist now. It doesn't survive bankruptcy. It certainly doesn't survive COVID. It doesn't survive the fact that I'm super blurry and that's clearly freaking you out.
It's really, yeah. And listen, we're going to do video and podcast for this. So you got to fix it, man. You gotta like just leave and come back. Maybe it's really annoying.
Honestly, everybody's going to get over it.
Okay.
I'm feeling pretty confident.
What if my cat starts meowing? Will they get over that?
It seems unlikely. Will you stop talking to me to go deal with your cat and just leave me hanging out in the quiet?
Giles got so upset. Giles said, if you don't open the door, there we go. Giles said, because Giles hates cats, he said, oh, you don't have to open the door for your cat. I'm like, I know I don't. I'm the boss, but I want to stop the noise. So I'm going to open the door. You look great.
Definitely doesn't hate cats. And you are definitely not the boss. But back to the point. We're going to have 12 super good events, and they're going to be better than the events last year. And I feel confident that we will be growing the volume of what was already successful events as we focus both physical asset and marketing time and effort onto these. So we can be losing our mind about this, or we can just lean into, for those who are fortunate enough to be able to get there, these are going to be wonderful. Bring your friends.
The other thing I noticed, what's that?
Bring your cat.
I don't know. Pepper might like, I don't know. Pepper likes to get involved. When we kick the soccer ball or as you call the football, when we throw the actual football, the NFL football, the cat likes to be a part of it. So I think he would do well, like hanging out on block nests, like going one direction. The one thing I did notice, you guys have maybe even not even triple down, quadruple down on infinity events. So for people that do like to run a lot, you've given them how many in America? 10 infinities, and I don't know how many over there. You guys have what do you have in England? 5 or 6?
Stand by, please, caller.
In America, we say. In America, we say 1 moment, please.
No, I think we're on 3 or 4 in Europe, and yeah, we got a handful. It's great. People enjoy it. People enjoy the experience. People like seeing other people, going the distance. It adds a really nice component to the event weekend itself.
I'm thrilled that we get in Atlanta Toughest, which we haven't had in many years. But I am curious, why did we move? Because it's always been Philly. I feel like, why did it move to Atlanta this year? Just to mix it up for next year, I mean.
Little bit of timing, little bit of that boring trailer lanes conversation. I love the Atlanta venue as well. It feels a little bit British, I'm going to say, but it's great. We got a really good relationship with the owner there, and we can put on a really good toughest event as well. We have one more off the top of my head coming as well later in the year, and when we confirm that, we will let you know. We almost certainly, you won't be the first to know. What I'll do is I'll wait for you to text me after you see it announced in a really angry Giles, why didn't you tell me? And I'll be, so awkward. We've got a toughest coming.
Listen, a man once said there's a fine line between persistent and pain in the ass. And I may have been that man, but that's the line that I walk. That's how I do what I do. I walk that line. Persistence is great. Pain in the ass, not so great, but I always got to find that line.
I mean, I feel like on occasion you've maybe closed your eyes and stopped looking for it. What I would say to your listeners is you take persistence very seriously in their interests. Oh, look, I'm even going blurry again. This is I get animated.
I only did that one time. I think I was really mad that you didn't call me, but really, that was just a matter of just reacting. I should have just waited a moment, but I was like, oh man, Giles, come on, man. Because I think we were in communication about something else, and you hadn't bothered. But real quick, World's Toughest you won't be at, which I'm greatly disappointed. I was able to bring you your Coke Zero and your donut in the morning and it was beautiful,
which I appreciated.
And I will.
You will bring it in Beaver Castle next year.
I'll be in Belvoir Castle. You all may be in Beaver Castle, but I'm going to be in Belvoir Castle. That's where I'm going to be.
Do you know what? You may be in the castle. Would you like me to introduce you to the Duchess?
I would love to meet the Duchess.
We could maybe do that. Get you inside the castle.
I may be royalty by then. Are you familiar with Sealand?
I am not.
This came up once before. Yes, the Principality of Sealand. It's an old warship sitting on a pedestal out there in the middle of the ocean. And if I pay $150 American, I can become a duke or a knight or whatever, all the levels that go up. So I also may be royalty very soon.
Well, I could introduce your dukiness to her duchessness.
Right.
We could maybe have a tea in a hunting room surrounded by really old dead animals. It's very weird.
Do you know any actual royalty, Giles?
What do you mean other than the Duchess?
Yeah, other than the owners of Beaver Castle.
No, just the various landowners. Speaking of, where we have our Southwest event, Badminton Estates, that's where they filmed The Gentleman.
Interesting. Do you know Sir Alex Ferguson?
I do not. This is going to be one of those disappointing where you rattle off half a dozen Brits and like, no.
Who did you root for as a young boy? Who was your football team?
Football's not a real sport. It's not rugby fan here. I can't be taking this football nonsense seriously.
Wow. This is a very hot take. I will clip this and it will go viral. Do you know that I went to a rugby match with my buddy Ian Kay and Will Chung? We watched the Rochdale, whatever the fuck they are, the Rochdale Beavers. I don't know what they were. We watched a rugby match. But it's the kind where you get 6 downs. Is that the good kind or the bad kind to you?
The bad kind. The bad
Okay.
kind. Rugby union is the sport of choice. Being South African, I take rugby very seriously. Can't take football seriously.
You're not English? Is this news to me? You're South African?
I feel like we've had this conversation as well. Yes, I'm not actually English.
You sound English. You don't sound South African.
Well, they might throw me out if I'm not careful. You've got to,
You're incredibly English, Giles.
Fit in with the natives.
You were born in South Africa?
I was. Cape Town, the good bit, with all the sunshine and the wine and the seas.
Do you visit often?
I not as much as my mother would have liked.
What brought you to England?
Wow, we are off topic. A gap year. I came for a gap year and then never went home. It was some time now, right? And now I would say I'm settled, given I married a Welsh lady and lived in Scotland.
Okay.
Round and round I went.
When is there going to be more Scotland and Wales Tough Mudders?
We have Scotland back on the calendar for June 2025.
I've heard if it's not Scottish, it's crap. Is that true?
If you're Scottish, then yes. And this is good. This is new venue for us. It's in a great location. It should be superb.
All right, Giles. I think that's plenty. I would love to talk rugby union versus what's the other rugby called?
League.
First
footy ball.
So did you grow up when all the great things were happening with the South African rugby?
Yes. If you mean like Invictus era great things?
Yes.
Yes, I did. When I first went to school, that was the first year kind of post-apartheid where mixed race schooling was acceptable again.
Yeah.
So quite an adventure.
How do you think Matt Damon did?
Excellent movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay, so you felt it represented your people well.
My people. Yes. Oh, it's just a wonderful period in history as well.
Well, no, because it's especially close to you. So if it's not represented well, so I'm from Boston, okay, and in certain movies, people try the Boston accent and they suck at it, and it's really bad. Same thing with Southern, right? I live in Atlanta, right? This is where I will probably live the rest of my life. And if somebody tries to put on a Southern accent and it's bad, it's like, oof, right? It's bad. So that's why I was asking what you thought of the movie.
So what's a movie that's not represented Boston well?
There's a lot of really good Boston movies. I'm trying to think where the accent was just bad, though. I don't know. Sometimes people try to do that Kennedy thing, and that's not good. But like, if I can only think of the good ones. Like, I love The Town. I love Blowout. I think it's a Boston movie. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of where they did it poorly. But just when you hear it, and they're like, "My mother packed the cat in the yard," and you're like, "Oh, that's horrible. None of us talk that way, right?" Kind of like how I do British accents. You don't actually talk that way.
That'd be true.
You know that England is literally my home away from home now because I've gotten to go multiple times. I was just there. I was just in Macclesfield.
You go to all the great places,
right? And I'll be back. You know that I'll be back in Manchester for this Fit Fest event.
I think you had mentioned it.
Yeah, you're going to be there for the 100K British Championships, right?
Am I?
You should. I know you're a big fan of British obstacle sports as the head of TM/Spartan Europe, whatever your fucking title is.
Who knows? Yes, like James and team. Maybe I will see you there. If not, no doubt we will talk before. Have a wonderful time at WTM. That's going to be my farewell to you.